And I just remember I need to turn on there we go. I got to get the closed captioning up and running too.
I love closed captioning.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. If you are indeed joining us live for this session this afternoon, and welcome to the kickoff day of virtual open house for our Waterloo campus. My name is Craig Chips, and I'm the manager of Canadian student recruitment. I'm also a proud Laurier alumni, like everyone else you see here on screen. They'll have a chance to introduce themselves in just a moment, but I would be remiss if I didn't start the proceedings by acknowledging the fact that we, Wilfrid Laurier University and its campuses, are located on the Haldimand Tract, traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee people. This land is part of the Dish with One Spoon Treaty between the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe people and symbolizes an agreement to share, protect, and care for our resources and to not engage in conflict. We recognize and honor and respect these nations as the traditional stewards of the lands and waters on which Laurier is now present. So we are here this afternoon to talk about the future. And I understand that one of our panelists actually just joined, but they're in as an audience member. So just give me a moment. I'm going to promote them right quick here. Promote to panelists. All right, Jasmine, you should now have a microphone and a camera available to you. And here she comes. Fantastic. At Laurier, if we can make our community bigger, we will do whatever we need to do to make that happen. Community is what we are about. So this afternoon, we want to just sort of connect with some of these young alumni, find out what they're doing, and to give you a taste of some of the outcomes that you could be considering as a possible Laurier student in the not too distant future. So as much as you have that immediate decision right in front of you right now, we know that you are also thinking about outcomes after graduation. That weighs into the equation as well. So we've got some great people here that I think can give you some great insights as to what their journey looked like and how that all came together. So without further ado, I want to introduce our panelists. I'll call on them by their first name. And then if you want to tell us your name, year you graduated, program you graduated from, and where in the world you are coming from today. And I'm actually going to start with Rama.
So hello everyone, my name is Rama and I graduated in 2019 from the Health Sciences program with a chemistry minor, and I am tuning from my bedroom in Hamilton.
Beautiful Hamilton, Ontario.
Yep.
And I mean, it only makes sense then that we'll throw it to Bryce because there's a little bit of an industrial connection as to where he's located today.
Yeah, that's true. Hi, everyone. I'm Bryce Erner. I graduated in 2019, and I majored in financial math, and I minored in computer science. Yeah, like Craig mentioned, I'm currently in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm attending school at Carnegie Mellon University, and I'll be graduating this December. So yeah, happy to be here.
Fantastic. Hannah, how about you next?
All right, so my name's Hannah. I graduated from the music program in 2018, and I am coming at you from Toronto.
Fantastic. And last, but by no means least, Jasmine. And it's Jasmine, yes?
It's Jasmine, but that's okay. You guys can just
Sorry?
call me Jazz as well. It's Jasmine.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Jazz it is.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Jasmine, as we just discussed. I'm actually a recent graduate from the political science program here at Wilfrid Laurier University. I graduated this past spring, and I'm coming to you guys from the University of Ottawa, but I'm currently located in Toronto as well.
Fantastic. So welcome panelists. Thanks for being here. And we want to welcome our audience here live as well. So the way this will work is I have some questions that I want to discuss with our panelists, but we very much want to encourage any questions that you have for the panelists also. So the Q&A widget should be at the bottom of your screen. Just give that a press and feel free to pop those in. Our panelists can be typing as it goes if you have a specific question for any of them individually, but I may also choose to just throw the question out there as part of the broadcast so that everybody gets a chance to speak to it also. I also want to mention real quick before we get into it that this is the kickoff of our Waterloo week. So throughout the week, this week, we've got a number of other live opportunities. They're going to be more focused on specific programs. We got a nice cross section of all of Laurier's programs here this afternoon. But if you want to dig more into that, I would encourage you to visit the virtual Laurier experience. And once I stop talking, because I can't multitask, I'm going to drop a link to that in the chat so you have that available. All right, so let's get down to business here and start talking about the things that are on our audience's mind today. So the first thing I want to ask is, as I mentioned before, this is about much more where you are currently that I think our audience is curious about as opposed to life as a student, but we're going to get there too. What would you say is the most transferable skill you developed as a Laurier student? Maybe it's something that you learned brand new, or maybe it was a skill that you had, but you sort of refined it while you were a Golden Hawk. The transferable skill that you're using the most right now in your career, or in the case of those that are also still students in your continuing studies. And this time I'm going to start with Jazz on this.
Yeah, sure. I'm just kind of thinking here because there are many different opportunities at Laurier to work with the community and use these transferable skills. And I think the one big one that I find right now that's helping me is really being interpersonal, kind of very connected with your community, just kind of being curious about what is going on campus and trying to lend a hand into what really interests you, what drives your passion, can really start to create a great environment for you. While I was at Wilfrid Laurier University, I enjoyed talking about diversity. I was a president for a student union club called the Laurier Pre-Law Society, and I tried to create events that talked about women diversity and really kind of broke those down for students. And I continued using those skills in my master's program now, where we're working with migrants. I currently work at a community center where we kind of have research that does raise awareness to these topics and talks about a bunch of diverse views. So really that whole connection was really important.
Okay, before we continue, I would be remiss if I didn't welcome our fifth and final panelist. Samantha, we're so glad you were able to join us. So I'm going to let you do a real quick welcome, and then I'll maybe throw it to you. You can answer the question as well. So first, the question on the table is your most transferable skill that you developed at Laurier that you're using now in your current career. And then also just for the welcome, who you are, when you graduated, from what program, and where in the world you're coming from today.
Wonderful. Thanks, Craig. And apologies to all for being a few minutes late here. My name is Samantha. I graduated from Laurier in 2019 out of the double degree BBA and financial math program. Where in the world I'm joining from, the exotic location of Toronto, I'm sure is probably common amongst a lot of us. So I've been living and working downtown pretty much since graduating. And did everyone introduce what they do for work or what they're doing since Laurier, or is that a separate question?
I mean, might as well throw it out there.
Okay.
In some cases not. It's all good.
All right. So since graduating, I've been working in management consulting at the Boston Consulting Group in their Toronto office here. So most transferable skill that I learned at Laurier that I use today, I think, is definitely one of the things that really resonated for me from the Laurier community is how heavily involved the student body is, whether that's in clubs related to their degrees. There's tons of business clubs that folks are a part of, but also clubs that are outside of their degrees, particular to their passions or things that they're interested in helping out with in their community. And I think that desire to get involved, that tenacious energy just to pick up new things and always be a very contributing and positive member to whatever community that you find yourself a part of, is something that I've taken to my career as well, and has really helped me to come at problems head on, to be a really well-rounded employee, getting involved in things around the office and pushing myself. And I found that community at Laurier is what's given me the confidence and the skill to be able to do that.
Rama, how about you?
So The most ones that stand out to me when during my time at Laurier would be the communication and organizational skills, and also which includes being detail oriented that I've gained as a health science student from Laurier. I've gained those skills when I was performing labs, especially chemistry labs, where I have to make sure that the results are accurate and they match up to the acceptable range of the overall results. In terms of communication, it's been applicable from like writing lab reports to research papers, where I've written those during my time at Laurier, and I got to apply those as a current biotechnology student at Mohawk College, where we got to like write out lab reports and take down or write down the whatever results that has appeared. And I got to also use those when performing laboratory experiments there and writing other papers and making sure everything is set, like from calibrating the instruments to make sure I'm getting the most accurate and precise results that I could get during the experiments.
Very cool. I mean, I'm a kinesiology major, but my plan was to be a high school teacher. So all the stuff you're talking about, calibrating instruments, doesn't mean a lot to me, but I'm glad that you're using those skills. That's fantastic. Bryce, how about you? Your most transferable skill that you developed in the purple and gold?
Yeah, no, a lot of good stuff so far. For me, it's just basically like learning how to learn. There's so much content out there that in 4 years, you can't learn it all, and there's always new things coming down. So I think, just learning, like your learning style is invaluable, because if you go to grad school or you start working in something that's like slightly technical, you're always going to have to pick up new skills and stay on the top of things. So yeah, my main takeaway from like my Laurier experience is just how to learn without somebody holding your hand at every step. Like, right, the professors get you ready, but at the end of the day, like, you need to know how you learn, and it was really fundamental for me.
Fantastic. So Hannah, I saved you for last with reason, because if the audience is anything like myself when I first met you, it's like, tell me more about the music student that's now about to article at a law firm, and what's that transferable skill for you?
Yeah, so as Craig alluded to, it was a bit of a unique path for me, but I found that I picked up a ton of transferable skills in my music degree that I'm still using today. I think the biggest would be time management, and I mean that in the largest sense of the word. Not just how to prioritize different tasks that you're doing for school, but the Laurier experience, like everybody has said, is very well-rounded, and learning how to build in things that you're passionate about around work that you enjoy and putting out good work product, but still saving time for friends and family. It's been really valuable, and it's something that I have done my best to maintain today.
Fantastic. And I'm actually going to stick with you to start the next question, because for me, anytime I have an opportunity to talk to an alumni, I'm always interested in hearing, like, where did you start? So if you can think back to high school Hannah and her game plan, ultimately she chose Laurier. From that high school decision to be a Laurier student to where you are right now, would you say that it was a straight line, like you had a plan and you worked the plan, or was it more of a winding path? And if it was a winding path, tell us about some of the twists along the way and how you navigated those.
Mine was certainly one of the windiest paths. I started at Laurier thinking I wanted to be a professional opera singer. So I went into the music program and I was really enjoying my voice lessons, but I just found in my first or second year that I was really enjoying music theory and the academic side of music and research and complex problem solving, which was not something I expected. And I didn't even know that undergrads that were music or fine arts related could enter law school. So learning that was huge for me. And I just started doing a bit more research on it. And the career path sounded kind of like everything I wanted from it. So I went for that, and the same has been true in law school. I went in not really knowing what kind of law I wanted to practice, but as long as you're open to whatever opportunities kind of come to your lap, then you'll find yourself in a good position. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Bryce, how about you?
Yeah, mine was I would say windy as well, but not to the same degree as Hannah. So yeah, I entered in financial math, and for pretty much two reasons. Like one, I liked finance, and so I wanted to do something related to finance, but then also I thought having like a STEM related degree was important, so it was a good fit. For me, originally I wanted to, the big goal was once graduating, like go work in Toronto at some bank. I ended up working at the Central Bank of Canada. And while I was there, I kind of learned how much bigger like financial math is outside of Canada as well, especially in like the United States or like United Kingdom. So then I started looking into, kind of coming south of the border for a little bit, and, it just kind of totally opened up the field for me. So I was always following kind of the similar direction, but I just didn't know how long the road was when I began it, but Laurier prepared me well for it.
Fantastic. I know Rama's doing a question in the chat right now, so I'm going to give her a minute and I'll throw it to Jazz.
Sure. So mine is kind of a winding path, if you would say, because I actually did get into law school this year. And when I first came into Laurier, I thought that my path was always going to be law school right after graduating. And so I worked really hard, and my grades did reflect that. But I found out through my experiences at Laurier that I loved policy. In my last year of undergrad, I took a lot of policy courses related to trade, and it really brought me back to some of the summer student positions I was taking as an undergrad student. And I was just like, wow, I love policy development, and I want to find out more about this pathway and how to do this as like a work thing potentially. So I ended up declining law school this year to pursue that academic path, and I'm very glad that I did. Because a lot of the research that I wanted to do, this humanitarian work, and specifically my connections with the migrant community, that was something I wanted to explore, and I had the opportunity to do that with my degree now, and through the community service development programs that they have at University of Ottawa. So kind of a winding path, but we're making progress for sure.
I imagine policy development in the nation's capital is kind of a sweet spot, right? Would you say that the city of Ottawa was as much the draw as the University of Ottawa for where you are now, or was it one more than the other?
Yeah, so actually it was many different factors. The University of Ottawa is very heavily into this bilingual kind of programming. And so what you get is you have the English program, but then you also have a very enriching experience where you interact with people who speak French. The community is extremely diverse, and there are opportunities to learn more and even get certification bilingually through certain courses. Another thing that was quite interesting for people that are interested in law, policy development, government, is that they have a co-op program, and 90% of their master's co-op program specifically for the arts is in the public sector. So there are a lot of opportunities through that route to pursue this avenue for sure.
Fantastic. Samantha, how about you?
Yeah, I think I've probably had maybe more of a straighter path than a lot of the interesting stories on this call. I think pre-grade 12 me thought I was going to be a lawyer. Seems like there were a lot of aspiring lawyers and some who are pursuing that dream in this room. And I came into undergrad knowing I always loved math. So I wanted to do something with that. And then I found business interesting. I thought it was a space where I could both develop a lot of the technical skills and the soft skills that I was interested in, but with kind of the end goal that I was thinking law was still for me. But it was through the co-op program in the business, the Las Vegas School of Business at Laurier, that I was able to get a chance to try out some different positions within more traditional business jobs, and found that I absolutely loved it, particularly in the fields of professional services and working with clients and problem solving for companies on any of the strategic questions that they had. And so through those experiences and learning that what I thought I would have loved about law was the client services aspect, the very challenging early on in your career, able to make big impact. I found that in a different way. And so it was the same kind of experience I was looking for. I found it in a different job than I thought it was going to be, but it was pretty straight on from there since I figured that one out.
So as a consultant, you obviously a lot of diversity with all the different clients. So just put it out there, either the company you've worked with that you found to be the coolest, or maybe you can just name drop here, like the company that you think we will all think is the coolest that you've worked with.
So unfortunately, all clients are confidential. So I'm not allowed to actually
See,
say
I
any
set the
client.
trap, but Samantha is a professional.
But like, it's been super fascinating in general, like across. The great thing about consulting when you join early in your career, as you mentioned, is you bounce around so many different industries and you get to become kind of it's almost like you change jobs every case that you work on, which is really exciting. And a couple of things that I have had the chance to work on, particularly over the past 2 years when, the business world has very much been turned on its head. With COVID, I was able to work with clients in the airline industry, which was obviously very, it was a very trying and difficult time for them. So it was a very great learning opportunity to be a part of that journey with them. I've worked in the social impact and public sector space in the areas of global health, which have been both great learning opportunities, but also personal passion points of mine. So those have been great.
Fantastic. All right, Rama, before you get to answering another question directed at you in the Q&A, you've been a busy young lady so far. I want to get your answer to the question about the straight line versus the winding path experience for you. Which was it? And if it was winding, how did you navigate those turns?
Mine, like the rest of the panelists, it's been the most winding part, like this. It was like lots of curves and twists and turns. Because as a high school student, I wanted to,
In case you were wondering, Rama has a land. Quick show of hands are our panelists. How many of you have a landline in your space right now? Oh, Jazz. Okay, I really would have thought that Rama was on their own, but Jazz totally has one too. This is live, baby. It's all good. And Rama's just gonna wait it out and let the phone ring, and we're back.
Yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, I was saying that as a high school student, I wanted to pursue in medicine, especially as like a family doctor and provide good care for my future patients. Then during high school, I changed my mind and wanted to pursue in medical radiation, where I applied for both medical radiation and health science programs throughout Hamilton and throughout Southern Ontario. Then Laurier was the first school to provide me with the offer of admission. So and I've heard about good things at Laurier, such as like their small schools, small classes, and like the atmosphere that they've set there, which I wanted to pursue there. Then when I was in health sciences during my 3rd year or 4th year, I decided that I wanted to do public health. So I decided to take a public health course in Laurier, and as I wanted to do something for the public and like make sure that the public are staying safe and healthy. Then I even applied for Masters of Public Health or for health research methods, but unfortunately I didn't get in. So I waited a year after I graduated in 2019, and then a year later I enrolled myself into the biotechnology program at Mohawk College. The college, it is a little bigger than Laurier in terms of the campus size. And while within the biotech program, I noticed that in terms of first year, it's very similar. It's like review from what I've learned from first and second year health sciences, for which I was also able to help my classmates, and I would also go on to even tutoring math for the college. Then right now I'm in second year of the biotechnology program, and I got to do labs, which are quite similar to the chemistry labs that I've done. And I've also got to learn more things about the biotechnology fields or program. And oh yeah, when I was at Laurier, I've taken a biotech course there, and it was really fun. And for the biotech field, it's basically like running so many tests on so many products, which range from pharmaceuticals to beauty products to foods to other products, making sure they are of better quality. And I'm starting to like this field, and I thought that I found my true calling there. As while I'm a student, I also work part-time jobs as both a math tutor for the college, and I also work in a medical office part-time, where I look at applications and papers. Lots of paperwork there.
Okay. So Rama, before you go into a direct response in the Q&A, somebody else who's very interested in health sciences, I'm going to ask kind of I'm going to sound a little bit like mom and dad here, perhaps. So you'll have to pause over this, but can you tell us, like, everybody has a good sense of where you're at. You've been able to give us great details about that. What would you say, like, where do you expect or where do you want to be in 5 years? What's the 5-year plan relative to where you're at? The winding road. And so do we see more twists and turns, or do you feel like this is where I expect I'm going to land 5 years from now? Rama, how do you feel about that? What's the direction you're heading?
Ooh, I'm hoping to so after I hopefully graduate from the program, I'm hoping to also do masters in either public health or health research methods. And I'm also hoping to work in labs in either a hospital or a pharmaceutical company or a beauty company.
Fantastic. Now, Bryce, you mentioned that graduation is like weeks away for you, my man. So, I mean, maybe the 5-year plan is projecting too far out, but what's next for Bryce?
Yeah, no, graduation around the corner. I'm basically counting the days, so that'll be fun. Yeah, early on, I mean, I'm going to New York in January to start full-time work. So I'll do that for at least a few years, and then down the road, I'll either stay in New York or go to Chicago, because there's a lot of like prop trading in Chicago, and a lot of people move from like banks to either hedge funds or prop trading after a few years. So it's kind of my like 3 to 5 year plan, but you know, it's all up in the air still. And
correct me if I'm wrong, but life outside of Canada was definitely not on the radar if we were going to say high school Bryce. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how quickly things change. When I graduated from Laurier, we had a professor that worked at the Bank of Canada before, and he basically recommended like I go do at least a year there because you just learn a lot. And there's a lot of different types of people who are coming in to work at the central bank. And it was through that experience that I started thinking about going to school outside of Canada, because a lot of the other students who were kind of already there for a year, they were getting into schools, you know, across the States and in Europe. So I started looking south of the border. Yeah, and like, one worry of mine is, I'm coming from Canada. Will the schools in the States know about Laurier or what my degree is? And there were no barriers to entry there. I got into, many schools, and there was never any questions about my degree or, what is Laurier? What's Waterloo? So there's a lot of opportunities post-grad if, you're looking to go international. Fantastic. And I mean, I have to ask this too, Redan. What's the one thing about life in Canada you miss most? And if you could, you just make appear Because I mean, it sounds like you're stateside for at least the foreseeable future. So what's the thing you miss most?
Might have to be Tim Hortons. I haven't seen a Timmy's in a while. I think they got rid of all of them in New York City now. So yeah, I would have to go with that. Also, just, you know, people who have played hockey are much harder to find here.
I mean, at least in Pittsburgh and New York, those are hockey towns.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I mean, our program is very, very international. I actually don't interact with that many Americans because it's a lot of people from China and India and countries in Europe that come to do these types of programs. So yeah, it's a bit of a different mix, but it's really nice to, you know, meet all sorts of different types of people.
Jazz, how about you? Where do you expect you'll be in roughly 5?
Oh man, you know, I hope that I'm either finishing law school or I am a practitioner just starting out. But I think that definitely something in government too. There are many opportunities, I think, to pair your trajectory of what you want to do with the things that you learn along the way. And one of the big things that I've been learning a lot is kind of how to work with different people and really connect with groups. And this is where I really emphasize rather for students to go reach out to your professors and see if they need help, or find out if there's opportunities on campus to get involved, because those could lead you down to the pathway that you want to go. Right now, I'm actually a research assistant still for an old professor I was a student for research, and we're currently working on a paper for political science policy looking at trade. And so that's a really interesting, you know, trajectory that could lead to different opportunities. So I would say definitely something in the law realm. And I think that the experiences that I've had at Laurier, the research, the community, the phenomenal opportunities that are there can bridge that gap to where I would like to see myself in 5 years.
That's like the perfect answer for your favorite aunt. You're like, you're not going to just nail me down. I got to keep my options open, but I will give you substance in my answer. So let's be like, but I'm not going to just commit.
I have a lot of practice for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Hannah, graduations, you're on the cusp of graduation as well. So how about you? What's the next steps for Hannah?
Yeah. So I will be graduating from law school in April. Well, I'll be finishing in April. I'll be graduating in June as it goes. I have a job lined up at like a big corporate law firm in Toronto, and I'm hoping to be a litigator, so like a courtroom lawyer. So I'll spend my first few years there kind of getting my feet under me and getting some practice in, and ideally we'll just kind of keep moving up from there and learning. But if I've learned anything from the past 5 years, it's to be open to whatever happens in the next 5 years. So I won't give you too certain of an answer.
So Samantha, I mean, you've been locked into a career, unlike a lot of others on the panel that are like been doing some student stuff and are about to move off of that. But I'm sure still that you have been growing as you've started and maybe professional development goals. What does the 5-year plan look like for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. One I'm battling with myself at the moment. But I think some of the things that I want to pursue in the next 5 years is actually I'm interested in going back to school eventually. I think probably just to pursue an MBA, but then I've also been quite interested in public policy. And so there are a lot of great MBA and Masters of Public Policy dual degree programs that I'm interested in. And a lot of great opportunities with firms that actually, you know, if that's something that you're passionate about, they'll actually like sponsor you to go. So I'm excited to potentially take advantage of some of those opportunities. In terms of location, I think one of the great things about working for like large global firm in whatever field is that there's a lot of mobility opportunities that come with that, and being able to move around. So keeping my options open for location. I think I'd be hard pressed to call anything but Toronto home. I've been here my whole life, so that would be challenging. But my partner and I are both kind of itching for an adventure at some point. So we could find ourselves south of the border or over the pond at some point.
Would you say, relative to like the opportunities that you're aware of in a large global company like yours, would you say that COVID has reduced the number of those? Has it increased, or has it just kind of changed the nature of them?
Yeah, I'd say it changed the nature. Consulting was a field, obviously, where we would travel every week to our clients, and so that came to a very hard stop when COVID hit, and it's starting to come back again in some capacities. But I think it's also a changing of the ways of working. I think previously it was the expectation that you had to always be on client site, but now both us and our clients have gotten used to virtual engagement, or perhaps not every week, perhaps just a couple days out of the week rather than all 4 or 5 days of the working week. So I think that's changed just the day-to-day job and like how much travel you have with that. I think that the mobility opportunities of, I really want to go pursue school, or I want to, transfer offices for a year, or do an externship or a secondment in an industry that I find really cool in a different country. Those are still there. I think for a while they were just halted because of global travel restrictions outside of our control. But I think they're alive and well, and people are really excited to take advantage of them.
Awesome. So I know Jazz is responding to a question in the chat, but I think it actually is a really good one by a member of our audience. So I'm going to throw this out there. I'll change it just a little bit to kind of make it sort of short and punchy. Relative to the job search process, what is your number one piece of advice when our students get there? I mean, they've got 4+ years before they've got to worry about it. But when it comes to, the question was, how is it finding a job that aligned with your career goals after graduation? So just job search, and this relates, I think, also to maybe like like grad school applications as well. What's that number one piece of advice that you would give? Hannah, I'll put you on the spot and have you start.
Sure. I think for me, it comes down to always being as authentic as you can, because it not only comes across to interviewers, but it also makes sure that you end up at a job that you are meant to be at, that you will be valued at, and that you will enjoy your time at. So I think university is about building up a perception of yourself and your personality in and of itself, but don't be afraid to maintain that when you're in the job search. There's no need to be anybody but yourself through that process, and you'll have plenty of experience to draw from your 4 years.
Yeah, job interviews are as much you interviewing the company as the other way around. I totally agree with that. Rama, how about you?
I would say show your passion. I would do something that would align with your career goals along the path. That way you can show passion on, like, through your job search, in terms of, throughout your interviews or in your applications, because that what would set you up for the future.
Very good. Bryce, you just recently landed that job. I don't know how long it's been sort of solidified that you know where you're headed next, but how about you? What's your piece of advice?
Yeah, no, I mean, I could talk about this all day. I love the whole job search process. It's always exciting. You can imagine where you're going to end up and all that stuff. I think one of my biggest pieces of advice when I talk to people in here, a lot of people doubt themselves. They look at all the qualifications you need to have, and they're like, "Oh, I shouldn't apply. I'm not qualified." I would just say, always apply. The worst they do is just give you a little automatic rejection email. The job I got wanted 5 years of trading experience. I haven't even, been graduated for 5 years, but I applied anyway. And it's true, I wasn't qualified particularly for that role, but I spoke with somebody there who referred me internally to a job that hadn't been posted yet that needed somebody slightly more junior. So there's only upside by applying. Just don't doubt yourself, just shoot for the moon.
Nice. So just to make sure we get the Canadian content in here, Bryce, you subscribe to the Wayne Gretzky advice that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah, also popularized by Michael Scott.
Yes. My wife once tried to tell me that you miss 99% of the shots you don't take. And I'm like, I don't think that's right. Jazz, how about you?
The one piece of advice I would say is, it is what you put into it. you're an investment piece and you have to think of yourself in terms of what transferable skills you can offer. Sure, a degree looks great and grades are going to get you to get you far to some extent, but you also have to recognize that, you know, your community involvement and the skills that you really develop can be used in these different forms to network with people, to showcase that online, and to market to different places to get connected. For example, in my political science classes, the policy reports that I was able to submit, I also put those online, and I was able to kind of communicate with different people, like what I have to offer as a person if I were to be hired, you know, who I can really help out and really find out those goals from there. So don't lose hope if you don't get the first job offer, but just notice that, you know, you could start off in a political science degree and you could go completely into finance or law or something else. It really does depend again on, you know, just believing in yourself and showcasing what you have to offer as an individual.
Fantastic. Samantha, I believe you're the last person to hear on this subject.
Yeah, I have two pieces of advice. The first is I would say don't get caught up just going through the motions of the job search process. Don't think like, okay, I need to hit and submit 100 applications and I just need to bang them out and that's what I have to do. I think, as a lot of the panelists spoke to, your passion and excitement and the effort you put into the job search process you will reap those benefits if you sow them. And so I would say, like, take the time to look into the jobs that you're applying for. Take the time to really craft a story, whether that's through your resume or your cover letter, that actually articulates why you're interested in this job, why you think you'll be a great asset to this company, and where it can take you going forward. So I would say, like, it feels like this process that you just have to, it's like, it feels like it should be a volume game, but it's really not. So, and I think that you can get really discouraged if you treat it that way. The second piece of advice is kind of in the same vein, but as someone who's now like had the chance to be a bit more on the other side of the coin and like accepting applications and reviewing it and actually being an interviewer, I would say that one of the things that I think is very underestimated is the importance of the questions that you ask during your interviews, and the thoughtfulness that can show to your interviewer. And as Craig mentioned, you should treat it as much as you trying to figure out if this is a company that you want to work for, as they should be looking at you as an employee they want to have. And so whether that's community programs that you're really passionate about or learning opportunities that you really want to take advantage of, make sure that you're coming to your interview with really great questions so that you can both find out those answers and figure out if this is a job that you like, but also show to that interviewer and to the job and to the employer that you are really excited and passionate about this opportunity.
Awesome. I'm really glad that question came in from the audience, because I feel like we got some really good nuggets there for everybody. Okay, so we spent a lot of time with the futuristic questions, but you're alumni. I know you want to go down memory lane for a minute, and I want to give you the opportunity to do that. So I'm going to ask this question to all of you, which is, I think, the most like relevant in the immediate for our audience right now. And that is, can you think back and tell us about your most vivid Laurier memory? And it might be like a really great moment. It might be a moment where you were overcoming a struggle. It's open-ended. It doesn't have to be the most fun. It's just the most vivid Laurier memory that you have. All right, I'm trying to read the room to see who. Jasmine looks deep in thought, not going there first. Rob, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, sorry. I wish I can highlight like everything that I've done at Laurier. It would be, I feel like it's gonna take over like the hour. I can go on.
Yeah, and you can't do
this.
that. We talked about this in the pre-meeting. You can't do that. So
I know. So the one that really spoke out to me, and I'm sure most of us can attest to it, would be the orientation week event that holds every September, first week of September, where I got to mingle with my mentors, or what we call icebreakers, and I was one myself for during my final year, and I also got to mingle with a lot of first years, got to attend so many events that that can like be applicable throughout, or that has been applicable throughout my life at Laurier. And there are also some academic related ones where I got to meet the science faculty department, and also the health science department. And yeah, I had so much fun with it. It's just like making connections with not just within my program, but outside of my program, in terms of like the interests that matches, and also getting to another one that stood out to me is getting to be part of like so many clubs and committees that I've been part of. Like I've been part of for a total 16 of them throughout my Laurier experiences, and they have been really fun.
Fantastic. Samantha, how about you?
Yeah, I have one very vivid memory that sticks out, but as I'm sure you'll hear across all of them, there are so many I could draw from. One was I was heavily involved in our case competition program in the business school. And we started to do, probably around my third year, we started to do a lot more international case competitions, which was great and super exciting, and an opportunity to both test our skills against some phenomenal business schools across the world, but also a great way to showcase Laurier on the global stage, get a chance to travel. So when I was in my fourth year, we went to a competition in Spain, and we won, which was an amazing experience. But the other reason why it was a great experience, it was actually my partner and I met because we were both put on that team together. So, you know, get great experiences and also can find love at Laurier. So that's great too.
Wow. Should have went to you last. I wouldn't want to have to follow that. Make you be the one who has to do it. It better be good.
I didn't hear the name. Was it me?
Yeah, it's you.
Okay. Great,
Sorry, man.
great.
It's
No,
not.
it's okay.
It's mean, but someone has to do it.
There had to be someone. Yeah, I'm the same way. There's a lot of different ones I can draw from. I think like the first week, the first month at Laurier is just like a great time because there's so many new people, like all the classes, the professors. It's just, you know, everything's new and exciting. And I'm sure that's shared across the board. I'll take it a slightly different way. For me, in my third year, it might just be like how our program was structured. But in third year, everything really started to click. Like in the first and second years, you're learning like all these fundamental skills. But then like third and fourth year, you're starting to like pull them together and apply them. And for me, that was just like a very rewarding experience because it was like, oh, everything I've done up to this point was like building to something. And now I kind of get to see what that built to. So that was a very like rewarding, you know, it's not really like a snapshot memory, but it was just kind of like this feeling in the last few years. It's like, okay, you know, now I know what that was all for. Yeah, tough to follow up after Sam, but
I think you brought it strong. And it's an important perspective too, right? The culmination of like what you were doing in those first 2 years and really sort of putting it together and then seeing how that's going to shape your future. That's huge. Hannah, I'll have you next. And then Jazz, since you were so thoughtful when I asked the question, I thought you would be the right person to close.
So I was actually also going to say when I met my partner, because I met him in Laurier in first year, but it's like less of a cool story. It was just we were in the same residence. So I'll pivot and I'll say my favorite, most vivid Laurier memory was my very first Shine Day. And just a little bit of explanation. Shinerama is a charity that raises money to help fight cystic fibrosis. And during orientation week in normal times, obviously, we gather up all of the first years and they go out into KW and they just cheer and dance around and raise a ton of money for the charity. It's usually like $70,000 in a single day. I just remember having so much fun, and that was my first intro to kind of the Laurier spirit. So I realized that being involved was fun and cool, and I could totally be myself for the next 4 years and be fully accepted and embraced by a community.
Awesome. Jazz?
Yeah, I would say that the one memory that really sticks out, and it's more of a trajectory here, but my presidency for a student union club called Laurier Pre-Law Society again. It was really fun throughout the time there because I struggled with the LSAT at first. The LSAT is the law school admissions test. And, you know, when you first start out, you're trying to understand this. And when you get your first diagnosis score back in this practice test period, you're like, oh my God, I am so dumb. And so, I mean, just kind of, you know, briefly. And so I was questioning my abilities in this community. And I felt for a very long time like maybe I don't belong and I don't have anything to add. But through my, you know, connection to the Laurier Pre-Law Society Club, you know, I started to ask myself what my values were and why I wanted to do this. And a lot of it was around diversity. A lot of it was because, you know, we need to talk about these conversations of, you know, academics being quite important, but also taking care of ourselves and having this lens of things beyond education that really makes us an individual and it really makes us thrive. So the Women in Law event that I created with Laurier Pre-Law Society was that opportunity to bring in these different perspectives. We had people from the Ontario Bar Association, the first Black president, she came in to speak. We also had people with very phenomenal stories about their experiences in the criminal defense industry. And as a woman pursuing this career field, that was extremely eye-opening for myself when I was kind of talking to these women, but also for a lot of the other students. They seemed very engaged in this conversation, and it was really a wonderful time for everyone to come together. And another experience I had as, you know, involved in clubs, the Pre-Law Society and everything, was being able to compete at national moot competitions, which is essentially oral advocacy. And that's where you really get to advocate and use your research skills from your classes, especially in the arts, and bring that forward. I remember being so excited at Osgoode Hall's national moot competition that I didn't even write a script. I sat there and I wanted to write down everything I wanted to say because it was just so passionate for me to be able to speak about something that I was truly excited about. And we ended up doing quite well with that. And that was the moment where I said, this is where I want to be. I know I want to get into the social humanities side of things, do research, but I also want to pursue this law career field because I think it is incredibly important. And there's a lot of phenomenal people out there that I am really excited to meet.
Awesome. Thanks for that. So panelists, our time is drawing to a close. And to our audience members, thank you for taking the time, whether you're watching this after the fact on demand or you've been with us in real time as we've gotten to know our panelists a little bit better. Thank you for being here. I want to just also point out in the chat, dropped a link in there, lots of other ways to stay in touch with us after today. One of the coolest things that I think we have going on in our virtual Laurier experience is the invitation to our private Discord community. So join the Discord server and keep the conversation going all the way through the decision-making process, as well as all the usual things like virtual campus tours, in-person campus tours. Admittedly, we don't have as many of those available as we like, but they do exist. So be patient and be persistent so you can come and spend some time on our campus. So panelists, thanks once again. I want to get you out on this one last question, and that is this. If you had a time machine and you could go back and give one piece of advice to grade 12 you, what would it be and why? And we're going to try and do this in lightning round fashion if we can. Bryce, start with you.
Yeah, sure. Since I was in math, I guess I would just tell myself, like, don't worry about the course titles. They sound really, really complicated and scary, but like, it's fine. You're going to build up to it and you'll be fine. And also just like, don't like undercount how valuable it is to just make connections with people. Like, that's almost more valuable than all the stuff you're going to learn in school. So yeah, don't underestimate that.
Awesome. Rama.
I would say to my grade 12 self, I would just say take your time in terms of like what wherever you want to go, because there would always be support for you from uh, your peers, from, from your professors and teachers, and obviously your family. In whatever you want to do, just take your time.
Great. Jazz.
I would say invest in yourself, not just your education. It's really important to take breaks. It's important to get financially literate. I know that young kids, especially today, set up that TFSA, set up an RSP, call your bank to figure that out. I know it's weird advice, but trust me. Take the time to work out, eat healthy as much as you can, but also be gentle with yourself. Realize that this is a progress. If you don't get to where you need to be the first time, keep trying, or be compassionate with yourself and say, you know what? Maybe I have to recognize that this is okay. I'm a human being and I'm allowed to make mistakes, and we're going to keep growing from this.
Awesome. TFSA one is actually really practical advice. Bryce supports it also. Hannah, how about you?
Yeah, I just remember in grade 12 being like perma-stressed about planning out every detail of my life for the next 10 years. You don't need to do that. Slow down, enjoy the ride, trust your gut, and things will generally work out.
Fantastic. And Samantha, I'm going to give you the last word on this.
Yeah, great question. And I'm going to take myself back to like November grade 12 Sam specifically, who was definitely in the place where she didn't know where she wanted to go to university for sure, like was still sitting and applying. And I think my number one piece of advice is meet people from the schools that you're applying to, from the programs that you're interested in applying to. If you can't get on campus despite restrictions, that's great. Meet alumni. I think that as a lot of the panelists mentioned, there's this like huge pressure to feel like, oh, this is the defining moment of your career, and if you go left, it'll turn out great, but if you go right, it'll turn out poorly. Like that's not the case. And I think that taking the time to just the thing that clicked for me with Laurier, because I was very late in my decision of where I wanted to go when I was in grade 12, was getting on campus and feeling a community that I found that I would be supported in, would be able to thrive in, and had all of the things around me to set me up for success. So I really encourage you to be curious, and I hope that you have that moment too, where you find a community that's not just, you know, on paper, this school seems great, but this is a school that I feel myself developing into a better version of who I am at.
Fantastic. Panelists, thank you so much for your time. It was really great to hear your stories, and I hope the audience appreciated it as well. Somebody asked the question, how do I join the Discord? So I'm going to just drop that link into the Q&A real quick, and then we will sign it off. So thank you everybody for being here today, the panelists, and also our audience who were great with asking the questions also. And I just hope that you all stay well. For those of you who are finishing out your school, whether that's graduate school or high school, good luck with that. And of course, always stay golden, everybody. Take good care.
Thank you for having me. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye. I'm leaving.